you are a summary of all the ages that you have ever been. We're so excited to be here. Thank you, TEDxGwarinpa, for having us. So let's get right into it. Today we are speaking on the global power of teenage stories. Now, I know you can't even imagine, maybe at some point you would have heard those two phrases being put together, global power, teenage stories, right? Because as adults, we get so busy with the lives we're living now that, you know, time just passes and this is what is the most pressing thing to us. But I would like to open up with a quote that says, you are a summary of all the ages that you have ever been. Some of us may have heard that quote before, and we're going to go deep into it today. Now, when you think of being a teenager, you think of it as a pastime of ease in your life. That's why so many people think of adulthood as a scam, you know, as we jokingly say. But that's because we look back on our teenagehood with rose-tinted glasses. Life was simpler. All I had to worry about was homework and getting my uniform cleaned for tomorrow. Somebody else was feeding me. Somebody else was, you know, taking care of my day-to-day. But then here's the issue, right? It's not really an issue, but I would say here's the problem with how adults tend to look back on teenage issues. We look at it as a past experience, but for the teenagers, that time of their life is their entire universe. It's their entire world. I would like to cast us back to a time, maybe somebody broke your heart, you failed an exam, when you were in school, somebody stole your lunch money. In that moment, if an adult had come up to you and said, it's not even that serious, you're not the one paying rent, you would have felt extremely minimized and dismissed. Because for you, in that moment, that's the only thing that mattered. For you, in that moment, that was your whole world that was falling apart, that was shattering. I texted my crush, but they didn't text me back. And if your parent hears that, they'll pursue you with broom. But for you, in your room, you cry for hours because, oh my gosh, my world is falling apart, right? So if we cast our minds back beyond rose-tinted glasses to our own teenage experience, we will remember that at that time in our teenagehood, it was the summation, of our existence.
Yes, and while Jesse has just explained the theory, I have lived the reality. I'm so sure most of us have. I remember a time when I had a crush on a boy in secondary school, and I didn't know how to approach him to tell him, because from what I'd seen in the movies, there was this confidence or this energy that came with being able to be bold to speak to your crush. But at that time, I was very shy. I did not fathom that happening. And I remember going back home and just feeling really sad. And then I remember watching Hannah Montana at that time. And there was an episode where she had that similar situation. And in that moment, I felt seen. And it didn't feel like, this is a strange concept. And now that brings me to the point that, I just realized that if stories from other countries could speak to us, then stories from here could speak to the world. And we realized that teenagers are not just watching stories for entertainment. They are watching because they are searching. They're searching for answers. They're searching for their identity. They're searching for where they belong. They're searching for what their purpose is in life. And so this is one of the places they go to find these things is media. And this just tells us how powerful media is in shaping youth and just the global audience and how they think. They scroll social media, they binge shows, they listen to music, and all of them is teaching them something. Whether they mean it to or not, people learn from what is put on media. And that is why when we started telling teenage stories, it was our mission, our duty to make sure that these were wholesome content that would help in the search for who they are, for what their purpose is, and for what they were put on this earth to do.
Now, what's the reason why you find maybe an audience in Nigeria consuming content from somewhere else on the planet? We watch Korean dramas, we watch Filipino telenovelas, we watch American TV shows. Some of us grew up on Disney Channel. It was because we could relate. There was some touch points in those shows that made us feel seen and understood. This is the global power of teenage stories. So let me bring it home. When it comes to teenagehood, emotions are the driving power of every single thing they do. We are not connected globally as teenagers to other teenagers because maybe we have the same culture, we speak the same language, but it's because we feel the same things. Like she said, talking about telling Nigerian stories or serving Nigerian stories to a global audience, we must hinge on the emotion of our young people. Why are we speaking about young people? Well, because like we say popularly, these are the leaders of tomorrow. Imagine a world where Nigeria was the leading experts that the rest of the world was following. Right now, a lot of the times, our inner culture within the country, within the continent, we have our own authentic cultural moments, right? But there's a lot of it that's also led by the West. Oh, skibidi toilet is trending on TikTok in America. I see so many people here are lost because like, why do I know what is skibidi toilet? But my younger sister is Gen Z. So I see a lot of weird things. I'm like, what is skibidi toilet, right? So there's so many things that are led or heralded by the West or by Asia or other parts of the globe, but hardly do we see, except in Afrobeats, thank God, where Nigerian stories are heralding what the rest of the world follows. And this is what we're here to challenge today. The reason why we are honing in on the teenage aspects of it is because these are actually the culture shapers. They are the ones that create the trends. They are the ones that start the sparks, start the movement. But more importantly, they are the ones that are going to take over the country at some point in the future, and you'll be hoping that, oh, we have good leaders out of them, good doctors, good pharmacists, etc. Right? So this is why we're honing in on this demographic to tell stories that shape the values of these teenagers. What do we want them to create in the future? Those are the things that we have to start instilling in them now. Like she said, through social media, through film, through television, through books, music, all sorts of media. Media is probably the fastest way teenagers consume content, right? So if they're consuming content, what exactly are they consuming? How are we ensuring that what they're absorbing are the things that we want to see represented in our parliaments tomorrow, on our televisions tomorrow for our own children, grandchildren to consume?
And piggybacking off what Jesse said, representation is not just the only thing that matters, the value as well. Because teenagers just don't want to see people who look like them. They want to see people who become who they say they will become. And because most of these times, the stories they heal, they see someone with a similar situation and they're going through, and they see a resolution that does not end in death or something extreme, and they're encouraged. And this now lets them, opens the horizon on how far they can dream. Basically, there is no limit to how far you can go, and that is why the values in the stories matter. It's not just about seeing ourselves on screen. It's also what is the message we're sending to the world out there. What is the point? What is the thing about Nigerian value and culture and youth that is so awesome that the foreign audiences can also benefit from? Because as much as we Nigerians swallow a lot of Western content, there is a lot of content within us culturally that transcends borders, that are still relatable. But it is the way we present it, it's the voice we use, the language, the colors, the traditions. These are the things that really make us stand out in a global stage.
And I dare say, as Africa is being primed right now to take over global content, yes, I'll say it again, Africa is being primed to take over content globally. We have to ask ourselves, are we really taking ownership? Because here's what's going to happen. The global powers are going to swoop in and they're going to tell our stories for us. So how are we priming ourselves to tell these stories? Now, we may have concerned ourselves with the teenage aspect of it because we strongly believe in a sort of catch them young mentality where we're influencing from a younger age. But I'm putting it to the audience now. In fact, I would like to pose a question so I just know exactly who we're speaking to. How many people or what walk of life are you, or is your profession? Are there content creators in the house? Mm-hmm. Content creators, okay. People that work in corporate. You run your own business. Maybe you're in the medical field, education, right? There's a wide variety of people. I don't assume that we're all in the same page because somebody may be thinking, but I'm not a content creator, or how am I going to influence the next generation? We are filmmakers, so we have a direct line to influence, and we do make those sort of films where we recognize that, okay, if somebody's watching this, they're definitely going to pick a thing or two, right? But to the rest of us who don't feel that we are influencing the next generation because we're not working in media. You should look at the people around you, your cousins, your nephews, your nieces. They're watching you and absorbing the things that you portray in front of them. If they find out you're a crook, or they find out you're unfair in business, or they find out that you're a liar, those are the things that will determine how they also present themselves in society. So don't think too far in terms of, oh, I'm not on Instagram, or I'm not on TikTok, so I don't really think I'm influencing anybody. Just look to the people beside you, because what they're absorbing from you, maybe they will go to TikTok and talk about, oh, how my uncle does this, and he's my role model. You've influenced that teenager, and so you've influenced the future, right? So looking at the global power of teenage stories, how are we taking ownership of our own stories? How are we positioning ourselves for the globalization of African stories? Are we melting away our culture to adopt what we see on other televisions? My father used to say when we were younger that television was other people telling a vision, right? I know that's corny, but today it quite literally is true, because what you watch is what you're absorbing, is what shapes your life. Maybe the reason why we're standing here today is because we grew up watching a lot of Western media that sort of gave us the representation we were looking for, but it might have been slightly different and maybe slightly more empowering if those stories had faces that looked like ours and taught us the culture and maybe gave us some more sense of national pride. Unfortunately, I cannot speak my language where I grew up. This is unfortunate because people I was watching on TV, they were speaking English. And as far as I was concerned, I wanted to relate. Not saying that I said, oh, I don't want to speak the language, but subconsciously, it never mattered, or it never occurred to me that, this might matter down the line. Now somebody next to me will be speaking Hausa and I'm looking to the sky lost. But that sort of causes an exclusion for me. It makes me not able to relate to my people and be able to relate to my fellow Nigerians, which is, quite a terrible state of things. But thankfully, we're in a place here today where we can quite literally change that. We'll have our young ones watching Korean dramas, for example, and they're learning Annyeonghaseyo and Chagia and all those things, right? So many of us understand because it's quite popular. But why is it popular? The Koreans consider entertainment as a natural resource. A natural resource where they hone it, they protect it, they take care of it and make sure that it grows. The entertainment goes far and wide because of how the nation looks at it. But here in Nigeria, we need more of that sense of ownership, of national pride concerning our culture, concerning our stories.
Yes, and when we also initially got into filmmaking and creating, it wasn't really to dominate, it wasn't even about global domination, but while we were creating, we realized, because we would get comments and messages from Jamaica, from the US, from Trinidad, just different places. We realized that, wow, these stories are so natural that a lot of people across the borders can relate. And this just tells us how the power of storytelling, or just how perception is really important. Because we're not just war, we're not just poverty, we're not just corruption, we're not just, all these vices. There's more to us. There's love, there's heart. We're soft, we're people with culture, we're loving. And these are the things that we should plan, or we should try to put out there. It doesn't have to be via film. Like she said, your immediate environment. What perception are you giving the young ones who watch you? You're in business, you're in the creative economy, you're in the medical field. What are the things you can do that can influence a younger generation who's coming after us?
So this is why value is a global responsibility. The value we're instilling in the next generation is our collective responsibility. We must care about the kinds of stories that teenagers carry, the kind of stories that teenagers consume, because they are building the adults that we will one day rely on, we will one day trust or depend on. Our governors, nurses, presidents, doctors, they are being shaped today by our media, by our stories. This responsibility is a collective one across Nigeria and across the globe. Every one of us must become a creator of value, a creator of value. So next time you're making your video, you're addressing a panel, you're addressing a room, think about what value are you leaving with the people there, because it quite literally shapes the future. It's not a responsibility for just filmmakers, but it's for every adult in this room influencing someone next to you. And I'd like to leave us with a question. What does your 15-year-old self wish you would create or protect for the teenagers living in the world today? I'll ask that again. What does your 15-year-old self wish that you would create or protect for the teenagers living in the world today? Because each one of us, inside each one of us, lives every age that we have ever been. And so the horizon becomes limitless the moment we decide to build stories worthy of teenagers who will inherit the world. Thank you very much.